Money transcends everything. Money transcends race. Money transcends religion. Money transcends national origin. It transcends sexuality. It transcends everything, because no matter how rich you are or how poor you are, you're concerned about your money.
Thanks for plugging in to Rethinking the Dollar. I'm excited to bring today's guest, David Morgan, creator and editor of Silver-Investor.com, to sit down with us today to share his thoughts on the dollar, as well as to give us the latest on his new book, The Silver Manifesto. I'm sure you're going to find this to be very educational and informative. I want to encourage you to click the subscribe button below for more RTD interviews, as well as monetary news updates. Enjoy our conversation.
Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. Today I have my guest, David Morgan, aka the Silver Guru. He's a publisher and creator of the Silver-Investor.com, and which also publishes the Morgan Report. He will join us today to discuss the issues surrounding the dollar, as well as his latest book with his co-author, Chris Marchese, The Silver Manifesto. Dave considers himself a big picture macroeconomist whose main job is about educating the people on honest money and the benefits of a sound financial system. As publisher of the Morgan Report, he has appeared on CNBC, Fox Business, BEN in Canada. He's been interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, Futures Magazine, Go Report, and many alternative media sources. So, David, welcome to Rethinking the Dollar.
Mike, thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to sit down with me. Had a great conversation with your co-author, Chris Marchese, a while back on episode 6 of Rethinking the Dollar, and he definitely gave me a lot of insight into your work as well as what goes on with Silver-Investor.com. But I want to speak with you directly to get more of a take on silver for its monetary purposes, as well as just what's going on with our globe in general. So without further ado, I want to get into some of the Rethinking the Dollar questions, and number one being, what comes to mind when David Morgan hears the words Rethinking the Dollar?
Mike, we could probably spend 2 or 3 hours on that, but I thought about it because you did give me the questions. And I want to distill it down. So when I come to Rethinking the Dollar, I immediately go to, well, let's think of what the dollar is. And I know you've had other guests. I listened to Chris Dwayne recently. And so the dollar is actually a legal creation in the 1792 Coinage Act. And so dollar is legally defined. The definition, therefore, is always and everywhere the same. And that definition, as you know, Mike, is 371.25 grains of 999 fine silver. So the dollar is a weight, and it's a weight of silver. That's the definition. That hasn't changed. That's still at law. So now that we have thought about what the dollar truly is, we want to rethink the dollar. And what we want to think about is what is in our pockets presently, that at the top says Federal Reserve note, but it also says $1. And so when I got the question, what came to my mind was, how did we get from the legal definition that everybody understood from 1792 onward for probably a good 100 years approximately? The crime of 1873 is when silver was first demonetized. And I don't want to go down a rabbit trail with you, Mike. But how do we go from an honest money system for roughly 100 years and morph into what we have now, when the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, knowing fully well what a dollar was defined as, but on a gold standard, and then 20 years later, canceling the contract with the American people on a gold-only standard and making gold illegal for U.S. citizens to own and only settle payments internationally with gold. Right. And then from there, going to 1971, August 15th, and Nixon saying, that contract that we have with everybody around the world that says we'll settle our payments in gold, good as gold, sound as a dollar? No, that's not true anymore. And it's really just a wonderful thing. I mean, those are my words, not his, but It doesn't matter. Many economists said it wouldn't make any difference. Well, what difference has it made from 1971 to 2015? And the answer is a great deal. So I'm going to back up and go to 1913 when the Fed was created, and we use their own information. And if you look at a dollar being worth 100 cents in 1913 and using their data, what is it worth today in 2015? It's worth about 3.5 cents.
Wow.
So this idea that what we think of the dollar is, well, if the dollar is a constant, and it's a constant amount of silver, its value can fluctuate. That's the free market. I could say Mike, that basketball you signed behind you, that's, your prized possession. How much silver do you want for that thing? If I offered you enough, you might just say, David, you can have it. I'd rather have that silver than this ball that means so much.
Right.
But so it's not a nebulous thing, but it's a two-party exchange or something like that.
Right.
So I probably drilled down too far, but the real question to me is, let's rethink how we got from something of substance and a weight to something that is just basically a fictional entity that everyone uses, or not everyone, but most of the world uses.
Right.
And question how we got there and why we let it happen. So that's what I would rethink.
Right. Now, how important is it in this day and age, right now, with everything going on, being that a good chunk of the audience are aware of something happening now, how important is it for Americans as well as the population in general to begin taking interest in monetary history as well as just better understand their own financial?
Well, Mike, that's really a personal question, but I'm going to answer it this way. Money transcends everything. Money transcends race. Money transcends religion. Money transcends national origin. It transcends sexuality. It transcends everything, because no matter how rich you are or how poor you are, you're concerned about your money. So it's really a transcendent thing that people really don't necessarily take for granted, but it's in the background of their daily lives. And a lot of it is tied to security. The idea of financial freedom ties the word freedom with finances, which means that if I have enough money, then I can do what I want. I could spend my day, doing whatever it is that pleases me. If you're, younger and perhaps more selfish, or maybe or you could be young and a big philanthropist saying, my purpose in life is to help heal the ecological system over here. And now I am financially free, and that's what I'm going to devote my life to. So I don't want to make it an age thing. What I want to make it is that financial freedom has a great connotation with freedom, with the ability to do what you choose to do rather than, eke out a living and, be able to eat and survive kind of an attitude.
Right.
So I would say, that's probably saying enough on the topic for now.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, before we dive into the Silver Manifesto, I wanted to get your take, and this is more of an opinion-based, but you hinted on it slightly in one of your chapters dealing with the coming crisis. Now, if David Morgan was at the front of the podium, all TVs globally tuned into your channel, how would you describe? Say that again.
Interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No problem. No, what would the David Morgan Global State of the Economy address entail? Dealing with everything's going on, what you know, what you've seen, what you've witnessed in your lifetime. What's the economy address? What will it look like, or sound like, rather?
Many people have asked me, and many, many others, what in the heck is it going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
So if you know, with a good probability of what the future looks like, you have much more mental preparedness. You can look at it and say, oh, well, it's really not that bad, or this is where I should focus my attention or whatever. So again, to reframe the question is, how bad is it going to get, and what will that look like? And I have an answer for you, Mike. What I'd like to do is, when you put this channel out for you and your viewers, I'm going to give out, there's a free e-letter on the Morgan Report. It's not the Morgan Report. I call it, it's a free e-letter. I call it the Silver Update. And on that, starting next week, I'm going to run for free, and it's available for free, by the way. It's not like I paid for it. A movie that is a documentary of the Argentine currency crisis of 2001. And this is a 1-hour documentary that I believe, if I was in front of the world saying, where are we going? I'm going to say we've already been there. Is it going to be exactly like that in Colombia or Venezuela or Mexico or the United States or Canada? And the answer is not exactly, but it's going to be very close to this.
Right.
So that's how I want to answer it. It's a 1-hour documentary. It'll give you a lot of great information, and it will show you exactly what took place. This is not hypothetical. This is not, the banks didn't close, but for all practical purposes, they did close, meaning that you could only withdraw a certain amount of money per day or per week, just like has happened to the Greeks. You had your life savings could be in a bank, but you couldn't access it. People band together in small communities and bartered. People in unison went to the banking establishments around the country and started pounding in unison, bang, 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 on the walls of the bank at the lunch hour every hour in protest. It wasn't violent, but it was noisy. So there are a lot of things in this movie that I think will resonate with everyone, and it's better than me saying, oh, it'll be this, it'll be that. It's like, take a look at this movie, digest it. I would actually suggest watching it twice. Also, Mike, I would suggest strongly that all of your viewers, please pass it on. Because the more people that know about what's coming, and again, it won't be exactly, but it's a good frame to look at to understand what the potential future holds. The more people that understand it, the better off we'll be. I have many quotes I like to use, and one of them is chance favors the prepared mind. And that, because if you have a pretty good idea mentally of what's going to come and what it's going to look like, you have a much better attitude to be able to go into it and realize, you know what, it's this, and it's really not that bad. Here's what the most necessary things are, etc. So I really, really thank you for that question, and thank you for the opportunity. Now, if that didn't summarize what you really wanted from me, go ahead and ask me again.
No. That was great because I believe, I'm not sure, are you referring to the PBS documentary on the crash? Okay, because I saw that.
And let's just drill down that a little bit further, Mike. Now that you're familiar. Yeah, it's a PBS documentary, and I've recommended this before, and they pulled it. You couldn't get it off of PBS anymore. So I was going to buy it and maybe show it, on the speaking circuit or whatever, clips of it or whatever. Anyway, the long story shorter, I found it, and now I'm putting it on my server. So hopefully we'll keep it, and that way anyone that's interested will have access to it. All we ask them to do is go to silver-investor.com, scroll down to the very bottom, put in your name or your internet name or whatever you use, and then a valid email. You'll get an immediate response validating your email. And once you're there, you're on our list. And when you're on our list for the next 4 weeks, we'll just give you access to this movie that you can watch and also forward and share with friends and family.
Right. That sounds good to me. And that answers it correctly because my very first guest for Rethinking the Dollar was inspired by a friend of mine that is currently, who's Argentinian, and so I lived there years ago, so I am dead aware of what happened because it's very tragic. So definitely that is a good viewpoint of what could happen. So, but I appreciate that. So let's get into your book a little bit, the Silver Manifesto, a little bit more on happier terms a little bit. Now, Silver Manifesto recently released. You and Chris Marchese got together on that one. Why the Silver Manifesto and why now?
Well, 2 reasons. One, why now? It's not really planned too much, but somewhat, and that was to be able to put out a book at the bottom of the silver market, because people that are able to buy the book and read it and understand it have a good opportunity to really prosper in the years ahead, is my strong view. Secondly, the manifesto, and we talked about why we named it that in the book, as you read. But basically, we wanted to put out something that would have substance from A to Z that covered not only the silver market, but all the interconnections of the silver market, having been money more places, more times, used more transactions than even gold throughout monetary history, how long it held as money throughout the world, why it did so, what we're facing, as we just addressed, how the fractional reserve banking system works, how that plays into the bullion banking system. And then after having that foundation, we talked about why that's so important to how the market can be manipulated, and gave us statistical analysis, and basically, whether it hold up in a court of law would be to be determined, but we made a very strong case for manipulation. And then we went on to equity analysis, which is very important in the resource sector. And of course, the last chapter was kind of my baby, and I talked about Beyond Silver, which touches somewhat what we've already kind of barely touched, which is what in the heck is going on in this planet? How is the human condition now at this late date so pathetic, so pitiful? I mean, you look, you're black, I'm white, we get along. You're in Detroit, I'm in the great Northwest. I grew up in a very integrated high school. Most of these things that are done by the powers that be are to divide us. We're different colors. So what? These are human problems.
Mm-hmm.
These are not race problems. There's no segregation on, certain diseases or whatever. I mean, there could be, but what I'm saying, accidents happen to people.
Mm-hmm.
Bad things happen to people. Lucky things happen to people. I mean, we got to look at, America was once considered the great melting pot, which meant that you could come into our society. I could. I mean, we all got here somehow or another, maybe at different times. So, I think the American dream has been lost. It's not only to be able to be free, it's to be able to do what you want, but it's to be able to be American.
Mm-hmm.
We looked past the things that were different. We looked for the similarities, and I think that's been lost. And I think I blame somewhat the powers that be that are constantly looking at the differences.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because, unity is an important concept, and it also brings about more serenity in society at large. So sorry if I got off on a topic, but I'll just sum it up in this way. Beyond Silver has no answers. I wish I did. I wish I would have, it wouldn't be me, but, better minds than me or whatever. But I question where we are, where we're going, and what the solutions could be. So that is what that chapter is all about, Mike.
All right. So in regards to silver as a monetary metal, what was the process in the 70s when it was actually, after the Coinage Act of 65, how it was basically demonetized and turned into just your ordinary everyday commodity? I mean, because my generation and everyone born after that time frame knows silver is just it's just something you either wear around your neck, or it's something that it's just it was commodity. That's all it is. It's not money. So what was the process like? During that time frame, is a transition from money to commodity?
Right. Well, I was 11 years old when that took place.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was, as it says in my first book, Get Skinny on Silver Investing, I talked about being paid 25 cents a week to, take care of watering my dad's orchard and some other chores. And, we were out in the country, so I don't really have much time to spend it. And I've always kind of been a saver naturally, sort of in me.
Yeah.
And so, one day I had this stack of quarters for week after week after week. And all of a sudden my dad, paid me my 25 cents, 2 bits as we used to refer to it. And I noticed there was this copper sandwich kind of thing. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. It was 1965. And I thought, even as an 11-year-old, I thought, this doesn't make any sense. How can this one with copper in it be worth what this 90% silver coin is? And so that kind of stuck with me. But how it transitioned, I think, was propaganda. I mean, if you listen to Johnson's speech, which maybe you can dig out on Google, basically, in essence, he said, silver's too valuable to use as money.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought money was supposed to be valuable. But
well, I hope you're enjoying this conversation thus far with David Morgan. I want to encourage my Android lovers to visit the Google Play Store, where you can download the Rethinking the Dollar app to stay in tune with more monetary news as well as interviews. Back to our conversation.
It was something that over time people just accepted. In fact, I was one of the scarcer people, meaning that most adults, when that transition took place, bought into it's only a coin, who cares what it is, what it's made of. And so the vast majority just overlooked it entirely the day it happened onward, where a few savvy people said, you know what, this is more valuable, and I'm going to take this and save it. And so I don't like the word hoard, but you can use the word, they hoarded silver coins. So they came out of circulation very quickly. And the people that founded one of the better known coin dealers in the country, all he did was collect quarters and dimes and half dollars and even $1.30 out of circulation, and then he bagged them up into $1,000 bags, which is how the banks had them. And then he would borrow against him. So silver was up ever so slightly, and you could get $1,000 face value that might be worth $1,100 in the very beginning. Take that to the bank, get a loan on it, and then buy more silver and keep building up the inventory that way. Looking back, it was a brilliant strategy that very few people thought of.
Yeah.
So it was just propaganda, being too busy, not knowing monetary history, not knowing the nature of money, what it really is. All those things combined, basically being undereducated and being distracted.
Right. Now, I love to just dig into the archives for the most part. So I search a lot of newspapers and go through historical timeline of silver and precious metals in general. But the silver to gold ratio that was set in 1792 to what it is today is unbelievable. I think it's maybe 70 something or so to one for gold to silver. You know, what are your thoughts about the current ratio and as things unfold, especially out east with the whole, I guess, the Shanghai exchange is getting ready to begin pricing some things. How do you see the ratio either shrinking, or what are your opinions and your thoughts about that in the near coming months or years as other people try to set the price, paper price rather?
Well, the ratio, as you know, Mike, it determines, if silver is outperforming gold or vice versa. When I called the bottom in September 2003, the ratio was at 80 to 1. We're about at 80 to 1 as we're doing your interview. I believe and have from the beginning that silver would outperform gold. And it has already shown that it can, because the ratio went from that high of 80 to 1 to about 35 to 1 in April of 2011. And I believe we're on track to do that again. I also believe it'll outperform gold maybe by a factor of 2 or 4, or perhaps greater than that, which means that silver being more volatile. And the reason I believe that is there's a lot of people like you, Mike, that are, bringing their heart and head to this topic. And the more people that are informed, the more people can afford silver. And as gold starts to accelerate along with silver, you're going to see gold get to a price that's unaffordable for most people. 2,000 ounce, 3,000 ounce, I don't know, but it's a cutoff at some point. So a lot of people go to the next best thing, which is silver, or in my view, probably the superior thing, which is silver, although we have to discount the volatility. I'm pretty used to it. And so there'll be a lot of people. A lot of people in Detroit probably are suffering financially. But as bad as they're suffering financially, if you could teach them the power of saving and the power of financial freedom and get the message out that, let's say, they made a pact to themselves, a promise to them, not anything from David Morgan or yourself, but to themselves, and said, I'm going to save 1 ounce of silver a month. It might not sound like a lot, and it's not a lot, but it's the commitment, it's the idea, it's the ideal, and it's the strategy that you can be more, and saving is important. So, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm suggesting for your audience, my audience, anyone that's going to watch this video, that silver is affordable to almost anyone. And that's not true of gold. Because of that fact, and people have what I consider to be a financial survival instinct, just like a survival instinct, when the Argentina situation starts to manifest further, then people will be seeking, well, you know what, I've got this and I've got the skill set and I can barter that. But doggone, if I had some silver to barter, I'd have more options to me. That's the power of money. It allows us all to do what we do best and not have to do direct barter. We can use an exchange medium that we all agree on that's honest, safe, and known value. And that accelerates and makes the marketplace a much more efficient and higher value proposition for everybody involved.
Right. Now, as we wind down towards the end, I want to get into some of the macroeconomics, some of the geopolitical events happening now, and get your opinion on it, get your take, because of course no one knows how things will unfold, but it's good to get various opinions and then come up to your own conclusions with the information you receive. So with all the things happening out east, as I mentioned, Russia and China, let's talk about the dollar a little bit and the future of the dollar, the paper dollars we're talking. How will the whole precious metals in the days ahead, affect the usage of fiat currencies, predominantly as the dollar as the world reserve currency amongst nations? And then what will it look like here in America if other nations begin rethinking the dollar?
The answer is I don't know for certain, but let's just drill down to what we do know. As you already outlined, the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa have already moved into a non-dollar system. They've moved into the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is really a precursor to counter type of bank to the World Bank. They're looking more for, a credit-based or debt-based system, perhaps. It might be an asset-based system. We don't really know yet. That will be providing funds for countries to build infrastructure for meaningful projects. So the move away from the dollar has begun, and it continues. All the BRICS, particularly Russia, China, and India, have been importing gold like crazy. And I think there's a two-part answer. One answer is, first of all, well, there's three. One is that the deterioration of the dollar will continue regardless of the BRICS or not. The BRICS are just there looking ahead and saying we want to protect ourselves and be in a position when the dollar fails further that we have our own trading mechanism and settlement process that will carry us through. But on top of that, you've got two questions. One is, are the powers that be currently, which I call the Anglo-American axis, going to be able to maneuver things to their way of thinking, or are you going to see the BRICS come out and perhaps establish gold as a backing to a currency again? And then you've got and that's the dialectic. And the synthesis could be that both these sides are being directed by the powers that be, and it's all a big ruse to get us all into global governance of some type. I don't really adhere to that, but I don't rule it out because I honestly don't know completely. So visiting the two sides is you could be in a situation where gold reasserts itself at an international monetary level. And it doesn't have to be gold, but it could be an asset-based currency of some type. Let's just say, for example, the yuan is utilized and it's gold-backed. Mm-hmm. Or there's a new currency, for an example, with Russia and China, and it's oil and gold-backed or whatever. So that, I think, is one road. The other road is that the current empire, globally, financially, and monetarily, imposes more and more draconian measures where you cannot withdraw cash from the bank. Cash is outlawed. The only thing you can do is use an electronic transfer payment that's looked at every which way from Sunday, as far as what you have purchased, when you purchased it, why, and everything else. And there's a complete control mechanism in our electron world where everything is monitored and everything is done with federal credits by world government. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, and this is just me talking, I don't know, but certainly I've looked at this stuff for many years, mm-hmm. is I think the two distincts, of course, are there others? Sure, there's hundreds of other possibilities, but I think it categorizes into those two. You're either going to come back to some type of asset-backed sound currency that really is more beneficial to the world at large, or you're going to go in a draconian measure situation where it's all monitored and everybody on Earth has got some type of monitoring device on every transaction that they take, and it's all controlled. Right. So it's control or less control.
All right, two last questions. One being, it took 100 years or so to diminish 97% or so of the purchasing power of the Federal Reserve note. Now, all this volatility is happening, all these world events happening, working on 3, 4, 5% of its original purchasing power. How fast or slow will you say this last or remaining 3 or 4% might, run its course, and where we hit some possible hyperinflation type of things? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that we've been grinding lower from the 2008 crisis. If you really look at the metrics objectively, without the spin that you hear from the mainstream financial press, it's been pretty much downhill. Not to say that there haven't been some great breakthroughs. I mean, the cell phone industry, for example, is, you got a more powerful, more usable phone than ever before. I, admit that. There's some stuff that's, very much on the positive. But overall, the general trend is still down, and that's not admitted by the mainstream. So my thoughts are we could continue to grind slower and lower overall. The shift is taking place, as we just discussed, from west to east. That's where the real power is. Manufacturing is power. And of course, China has had more than a hiccup. They're really having a correction, or more than that, perhaps. So there is a decline on a global basis for what we have as resources, what our abilities are to feed the world and to come through this financial conundrum, which cannot be fixed with the current measures that are being implemented. So that would be my main thoughts, is that it's probably going to continue to grind slower, but I cannot rule out, or will not rule out, that we could have an anomalous event that takes it down suddenly, rapidly, and the day after tomorrow is so different than the day before that everybody knows that things have changed so significantly that their lives will be affected from that point into the future for an undetermined amount of time. So again, going back to that movie, that if you get on my free email list by scrolling down to the bottom of silver-investor.com, put in your name and an email, you'll be able to watch that. And Mike, which way do I lean? I lean toward the latter. I think I always have believed since I was that 11-year-old kid, maybe not that early, but certainly in my 20s and studying this stuff, I really believed in my heart of hearts that I would be alive when the now referred to as the Great Reset took place. And I still believe that.
Mhm.
So is it, 5 months away, 5 years away? I'm not sure. I think it's sooner than later. I really don't think we can go 5 more years, but you could make that argument. And I think it could happen swiftly at some point.
All
It's
right.
sort of like getting to the end of a cliff. You get closer and closer and closer, but once you get over the edge, it happens very rapidly.
You were able to give the young 25, 30-year-old Dave Morgan, who's living in these times, some advice on how to just, for example, survive, thrive in this type of environment. What would you tell yourself? What kind of examples? How would you allocate some things, or just share with us? What would you tell yourself in this day and age, the younger you?
Well, thank you for the question. Let me reframe it. I just say, what would I tell my generation or whatever? And I don't want to make this about me. I just want to share my experience. Thank you. I think it's a very well thought question, Mike. It
Nice.
really is. And I've thought of this a bit. I think number one is to live within your means. I think that's an important thing from the monetary aspect. Regardless of what you use for money, live within your means. Number two is to be of service to others, to realize that we're all given different gifts. I don't know what your beliefs are, but certainly I believe in a higher power and choose to call him God or it God or whatever.
Right.
I also think that speaking to my earlier generation is not only living within your means, but learn to get by with more and have the entrepreneurial spirit. Do not look to others to provide a job for you. Look for you to determine what's in your best interest and serves others at the same time. So let me restate that paradox. How can you be the best you and simultaneously be of maximum service to others? So I would say that to myself. I'd say live with integrity and know what your boundaries are. Certainly, most of my growth has come through challenges. So it's not to look away from them or hide from them. And certainly there's some that are very difficult, but nonetheless, we all have challenges in life. And I think the other thing is, one, put money in the proper context. I certainly, up until I was mid-30s really, had too much power to money, and that was me. I was more involved. I mean, really a very childish look at money. I thought the old adage that money can't buy happiness or whatever, which is a truism, was, oh no, money could solve like any problem. I mean, it's very childish, but there was such a major event in my life at that time that it changed my perspective on money forever. And so I would share that to earlier, to people in their 20s to 25, as you suggest, to get that foundation and know that to your heart of hearts, that there's certainly more to life than money. And lastly, I guess, my mission statement, to teach and empower people to understand the benefits of an honest monetary system. Because if we're all on the same page and we're all using something of value for our transactions, no one's being cheated. But the whole system now is based on a lie, and lies don't last forever. As the old adage goes, the truth will out. At some point, the truth comes that a dollar isn't a dollar. It's a fiction, and it's created by a private banking consortium. That's a private corporation, loaned to the federal government at interest, and you, Mike, are responsible for paying that back along with everybody else you meet on the street everywhere and always.
Right.
And who had the permission to tie you to that kind of debt? Did you get to have it? No. If you go back into history, there was a big call in the early days when this country was founded that taxation without representation is tyranny. I think it's something that we might ponder. So I think I'll close with that, Mike.
Right. Sounds good. Well, David Morgan, thank you for sitting down, taking time with us. Please share with us how we can be a blessing to your work, and stay in tune. You mentioned the video at silver-investor.com. How else can people follow your work and be a blessing to what you're doing?
Well, the best thing is just go to the website. There's a YouTube channel called Silver Guru. There's a Twitter feed at silverguru22. Support at silver-investor.com if you want to email us. And basically just go to the website. Everything pretty much stems out from there. Get on the free email list, at least to watch the movie. If you don't like it, it's free. So you can opt out anytime you want. But I'm trying to be, again, of maximum service to others. And
Right.
Mike, I appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good fight. Keep educating people and keep walking your talk. I really admire you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Well, this concludes my discussion with David Morgan. Hope you found this conversation to be very informative as well as educational. I want to encourage you to get a copy of his book, The Silver Manifesto. Just scroll down below, visit the RTD bookstore where you can be directly connected to the Amazon link there. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts on this interview. And if you find it to be important, which I know it is, feel free to share it with your family and friends so they can be aware of what's ahead. Visit rethinkingthedollar.com where you get a chance to test your money IQ, as well as get a copy of my free ebook, The Simplicity of Money. Also, you can link up with me on Facebook where I share monetary news daily. Looking forward to bringing you more interviews. Until later, bye.